Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Allison Drini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom O'Gorman. Tom, how's it going? He waves.
I'm good, but we got to cut right to the chase right now.
Uh-oh. What
We're
happened?
going to go right into it because I think you're coming around on driving cars that aren't exceptionally good. They're a little bit bad, and you're having a lot of fun. I got to hear about it. Tell me why I'm wrong first, and tell me how it was.
Okay, so Tom's
Go.
talking about I went to I forget what they call it, but it's basically they clear off all the racetracks in Summit Point Motorsports Park. So the main circuit, Shenandoah and Jefferson, and we got to do laps on all of them in one day, and it was kind of like autocross style where it's like a standing start and then but like you start on the front straight and then you do the whole track and then you end back on the front straight. But
Okay.
there's no cones anywhere on the course except right in the start. So you're doing a standing start lap of the track. It was actually super fun. It was called Get It Fast. I Get Fast Events, I think is what it's called. So they're the ones that host it. Super super fun. I got to drive with Justin Peachy. So thank you, Justin, for letting me slide around a Corvette. We drove in his daily driver, which is just a C5 that admittedly is kind of a heap, but it's a C5
Keep going. You have my attention.
with a functional V8, and it was on snow tires. And he was talking about like, oh, we might not be that competitive on snow tires, but I wasn't really planning on being competitive. Like, but I wanted to know how you felt. I'm like, dude, I want to drive on the snow tires. I don't care. Like competitive, like who cares? Like we're like the snow tires sound so much fun. Um,
Dude, you sound so much like me right now.
but like my purpose for the event was just to keep rust off, and I feel like snow tires is like the tire to keep rust off.
Hang on. What is, and maybe Carlton can chime in here. You wanted to keep rust off, so you went and drove in the snow in your Corvette.
Okay, it was not my Corvette, and we weren't driving in the snow. It looks the screenshot you posted looks like somebody was driving in the snow, but that certainly wasn't me. I don't know how that car ended up there. Um, but uh, on pavement, snow tires are probably the most predictable and forgiving tire you could ever drive on. I could not believe you felt like you weren't going very fast, but you felt like you were magic. Like you're sliding the car sideways at 90 miles an hour and you look 350 feet up the track and you're like, that's where the car's going to end up. And then it just like slithers and ends up in that spot. You just felt like, I don't know what I would love to break down why it felt easier. Entries felt a little tougher because it was a little tougher to place the car. Um, but like exits felt like it just felt like you were cheating. Like it felt
Yeah.
like almost arcade racer video game easy on exits.
It's like a broad strokes thing. This is a crazy analogy, but think about like you ever
Let's hear
watch
it.
Bob Ross, right?
Happy trees? Is that what you're talking about?
Happy trees, happy birds, wherever they are in your little world. He uses these giant brushes with these big colors that like, and then he does these little things with them, and you're like, how did you just accomplish that like detail and that like precision and that excellence with such a broad stroke? To me, that's what like when you take the grip down, when you slow things down, when you make the wheel like these big broad strokes on the wheel, picture that like a paintbrush that's just like painting happy little clouds. That's how I feel like snow tires drive. They're just like because no detail matters. It's the broad intent.
Yeah. And
You know what I mean?
yeah, so and you would set it was really good practice at setting the weight very slowly on each corner of the car as you want it because it was really easy to shock them. And then like
Mhm.
when you shock them, you just messed up. Like it was just like, hey, you messed up, but like nothing bad happened. Um, except one time on the entry into turn 4, which is the shoot on the main circuit. I I kept
Ooh.
it was in like in between fourth and third gear, and every single time I just left it in third, it felt a little slow. So I'm like, I'm going to fourth. And I went to fourth and I went to turn in, and the front end didn't quite go where I wanted it to. So then I started to like touch the brakes to like pull the nose in. And when I touched the brakes, the nose didn't pull in, it just washed out even more. No, it didn't spin.
Oh,
It didn't spin. Tom made a spin motion. So it just washed out even more because I overloaded the outside front tire with the brakes because the brakes were a little sensitive. And so then I really wasn't where I wanted it to be, and I puckered a little bit in that moment. I kept it on the track and everything, but generally, like, when you're like, "Oh, I didn't really place the car exactly where I wanted," and then you go to damage control it, and then the damage control doesn't do what you expected it to do, that's, I think that's cause for, like, "Alright, I need to check myself before I wreck myself."
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like with Corvettes, the reason I did the spin motion is whenever you get the outside front overloaded a little bit, it's usually followed by the outside flopping over on the outside rear tire and then just wanting to come around.
That's what
Whether that's a leaf spring thing or I don't know if that's just a Corvette
That's
balance
what I
thing,
was
what,
hoping
but
would happen. It was
right.
it was a fun little challenge to get all 4 tires, like, moving at the same slip angle and not overloading any one corner of the car. That's why I felt like it was really good for, like, knocking off some rust. Because all those things on the snow tires happens so slowly, but you have to be so deliberate with your actions. So, like, everything was slowed down so you could really, like, focus on those minute details and, like, getting it right. But the speeds were lower because you're on less grippy tires, and the input window was rather large when the intent was correct with how you were maneuvering the weight around the edge of the car. So it made for a really really fun driving dynamic, like just the amount of slip angle that you're holding everywhere, and the tires are just howling, just making all sorts of like noises that totally sound like you're about to die, but everything's good. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
it was super good, and it was fun. Justin hooked up data because it was really just me and Justin competing against each other. We hooked up data, and we had like different approaches in different sections of the track. So what's up?
Is that because everyone else brought, like, grippy tires? Because it wasn't really a snow event, is that why?
Yeah, I mean
Like, why weren't you competitive?
there was like 16 people in our class, and we were like second and third, or third and fourth. I think like people they like there was one particular person that got faster, so they ended up just being in second. Like in the later sessions, I think they just like started
Gotcha.
trusting themselves a little bit more. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, they were on Bridgestones or yokes, so like we weren't gonna catch them. Also, the car. Sorry, Justin. It stopped shifting to fourth at one point, so we were kind of like electric go karting around the racetrack. Like, we would get to our top speed, and then that was it, like, carved distance, baby.
That would work for the second half of the track, okay? Because it's a base C5, right? Not a Z06, so it has, like, a 170 mile an hour third gear. Is that right?
170, it was like 105-ish, I think, or maybe like
Because
100
second goes to 112, I think.
no, second was like 70.
Right,
So,
yeah, yeah.
I thought so as well. I think I forget what Justin told me. I think it was the slave cylinder, or the clutch slave. You basically have to take the entire car apart to get to it. So, uh, it just he has the part, he just hasn't done it yet. And at low RPMs, it was completely fine. So, like, on some of the other tracks, I could shift to fourth because I could short shift. But, like, at the Shenandoah circuit, which they picked the craziest layout, by the way. You know how Shenandoah has that jump?
Yep.
Yeah, so we went over the jump. Uh,
Awesome.
yep, and there was a river of melted snow right under the bridge. And my first time out there, Uh, I caught it, and it was both like me and Justin both didn't know it was there, and he was in the passenger seat because we're just like memeing around. And I think I went 180 degrees. Didn't feel like I was gonna crash the car, but it definitely probably scared Justin. I went like 180 degrees on the wheel, like as I'm cresting the hill, which is like not ideal because like you do get a little bit of air there. So then
Yep.
for the next runs, we short shifted when it was still going into fourth, um, and like made sure we straight lined that little stream because where it was, you would kind of have the car loaded up a little bit. So you had to straight line it over the stream and then over the jump instead of just over the jump. But yeah, it was really fun. Uh, just one I think co-driving that event would be the most fun way to do it just because of the pace of it. And it was just it was fun co-driving, and it was fun just doing some driving in the middle of winter. Something that I did not expect, Tom, with just snow everywhere, references are very tough because there's no brake boards, right? They're not putting those
Oh,
out. There's no physical anything. It just looks like a bunch of snow. So like the the references were really tough. There was a snowball. For some reason there was a snowball. I don't know if somebody made it or if the snowball organically happened. I don't know how a snowball would just happen without human intervention. But there was a snowball like somewhere near the apex of the last turn on the Shenandoah circuit. And that was the greatest reference ever. The snowball was like right at apex. So like at least for that corner, I had something to look at. But for all the other corners where it's just covered in snow, I didn't have anything to look at. So it was kind of like it was cool. It was getting me a little bit out of my comfort zone because I drive so much with like finding visual references to look at. But in this particular instance, I was finding like weird bits of snow to look at maybe or like where a stream is running across the track might be a reference or
yep.
like just like I had to be much more creative finding references that were relevant to my laps there. And we only got 3 or 4 laps around the track, and then they would load up the equipment and we'd go to the other track.
Oh, they had to move the equipment for every single time?
I they must have had at least two because it was quick.
Oh, that's not too bad then.
Yeah.
For one lap, not to pivot, but for one lap, they send that timing equipment ahead like an entire day. Like they're like leapfrogging track after track. But that is an interesting challenge. You remember the story I told about CMP last year when we rented it? They didn't put the boards out because we didn't pay for the boards, or they didn't think we would want to. And it was wet all morning, but as it dried out, people started going off all over the place, specifically in the main braking zone, which is turn 11. So they like come back into the view of where you can see in pit lane, and then it's just these people falling off the track, but only a little bit, like all the time. And I realized like now it's dry, everyone's feeling brave, and there are no brake markers for this corner, which is the biggest braking zone on the track.
Yeah. It's a
And
pretty good
people could not figure out what to do. So I stopped the whole event. I brought 4 cones out there. I put 4 brake markers out, literally at whatever my pacing was, just like I don't know, walk 20 feet, walk 20 steps, and do it again.
Yeah, as long
And
as
then
it's
people stopped going off.
yeah, as long as it's in the same spot, right? But yeah,
Yeah,
I think because we've talked about this on the podcast before, but I am super super visual reference. Like I need that, and I think that's part of the reason why I tend to do better on racetrack stuff than autocross stuff because autocross is very hard to have visual references. It's very
mhm,
very very much by like the feel, the seat of the pants, and I think I'm so much of a reference driver just from my time sim racing because like that's the only way that you have any kind of accuracy in sim racing is by having like really solid references and the more references you have the more accurate you are uh so yeah the snow covering up everything and not having the greatest references also there was a little bit of a like a rallycross aspect to it because somebody would drag snow onto the track and now the line was
for
slightly
sure.
different, right? It's like, ooh, now
Yeah.
I have to switch it up a little bit, like change the shape of this corner.
Yep. We did a Barber Champ Car race like that once where it had snowed like maybe the Thursday before the race, and it had not melted by Saturday. And if anybody would go off, you know exactly where they went off because obviously
Yep.
their little tire tracks are in the thing. But then they drag all this mud and snow back on, and it's 8 hours of 70 cars racing at Barber. It's just snow and mud everywhere after a certain period,
Yeah,
which made it way more fun. Like you had to be a little bit more creative with planning ahead for like, oh, I see there's snow there, I can't end up there.
and it was getting kinda warm, so, like, in the morning, there was no, like, streams running across the track, but, like, as it heated
Mhm.
up, like, the water would start to change, so you would get, like you would have to get your trajectory set perfectly, so you could just, like, straight line 'cause the car's not gonna turn on that, like, cold, wet, like, pavement. Um, yeah, it was just a fun little, just me and Justin were just playing in a car and just having like a really great time. It was honestly super enjoyable.
Did you learn anything, or did you guys have any light bulbs between the two of you going through data and sharing and stuff? You
uh
don't there doesn't have to be one, but
yeah,
curious.
I think I think the thing that kept catching Justin out was the lack of references. So when we were talking about the track, I would say like, "Oh, well where are you like turning in for that or turning in for this?" and I think Justin realized that. He's like, you know what? I'm not really paying attention to that, and then so I beat him in the first two tracks, and then he ended up beating me on the third track, and he was doing a much better job, like noticing, okay, this is what I did last time. This is my adjustment according to this reference that I picked out, and he like picked it up super quick, and he gambled. He's like, I'm gonna shift to fourth. I'm gonna try it, and then hopefully it goes back down to third, and it worked out for him, and he beat me. Damn it, that son of a bitch. So
That extra gear helps.
yeah, well, I also my last run was like a complete shit show. So it was I like because I went on an exit and the diff doesn't really diff. So I caught a little snow on exit, and then the outside rear tire just whoom, just like spun up, and then it got to the pavement, and then the car just kind of like wasn't happy, and then that run,
Yep.
and then I was like, okay, well, I didn't leave that much time out there, so like now this run's just ruined. So then it was like done like right in the beginning. So I was like, ah, crap! Like my one shot to beat this is completely gone. But
Was it was it all, what do they call it? Rallycross timing, or was it autocross timing?
autocross
Like your
timing,
single best run, or
yeah,
everything added?
single best, single best.
Okay, that's good. So you won the third gear challenge. Hey.
Hey, I don't know if you added it up though, because Justin's last time was pretty quick. I'd have to add it up. Like if you added the three segments,
Sure,
I'm not
sure,
sure
sure, sure.
how it would have played out. But on that wasn't
Dude,
that wasn't the
can't
goal,
believe you
or
didn't do that already.
but that wasn't the goal of the thing. Because the last time besides this weekend, the last time I drove something on pavement was the GT3 RS at Road Atlanta in November. And one of my goals this winter was to not get rusty. So I felt a little bit of rust on like the first and second run, but it quickly melted away, and I just felt fine, like driving a car around, like slipping and sliding. But the rust was there, right? On those like first two runs, I wasn't like lights out right away. And I felt like in November when I jumped in the car uh at Road Atlanta, I was just on it right away because I had zero rust. And so that's my goal, is to like have that zero rust, like jump in a car and be on it right away. Right? That's the overall goal. So
Right.
hopefully I can kind of keep that going by continuing to drive. I have to do 9 more events before one lap to meet my 2025 goal.
That'll be so doable. The fact that you're already ahead and you still have 3 months, February,
Well,
March, April. Yeah, you have 3 months. You'll be fine. That's
ye-
like 15 weekends.
it's 15. Yeah, 50. So I only have 5 weekends where I like cannot drive something.
Yeah, that's so many. Every weekend has 2 days in it. Like,
Oh my
that'll be fine.
goodness. I'm not counting. I'm not counting a like a Saturday Sunday is like, because I need the repetition, right? I don't need the,
You know,
like, it's like, what if I did like an event or drove on a racetrack every single day for the next week? Is that 7 events? Well, not really, because then I
no,
have this long period of time before I get to drive again, right? I want that repetition, so it's so those pathways in my brain are like nice and like ironed out and like fresh.
good pick of words. We have Eric Peachy, Justin's brother, in the chat, and he said something that only a brother could say, but also I think the next time you guys go, you should drive his Viper.
Yeah, where were
Next event.
you? Where were you, Eric? Where was your Viper? I didn't see it there.
He basically said he's just all feel, uh, as a driver, Justin is. Which, I mean, honestly, that's kinda how I am too. I'm way more rhythmic based with my references. I do need brake reference points for heavy braking zones,
Yeah,
but other than that, I'm pretty, like, rhythmic and spatially, referenced rather than, like, hard points, which is always tougher for me to describe what I'm finding. But when I'm pushed to describe what I'm finding, I can verbalize it. It's always just obscure unless it's a kind of straightforward braking zone. There was one year at Thunderhill where it was like the specific, there was a piece of like sealer that would reflect in my headlights at a certain time in the night stint, and it was always there because it was always when my headlights would pass it, and I would always brake at that when my headlights like went over this piece of sealer and glowed a little bit. And it was off on the left side of the track because it was between two brake markers I couldn't use. There was nothing else, and I had the hardest time describing like And I didn't come up with it because I'm smart. I just like that's where I figured out my brake reference from my like sampling and testing and honestly driving off the seat of my pants a little bit. Like you have to try those things first and then establish something to make a reference point on in my world. Like I don't start with unless it's a basic brake zone 5 4 3 2 1, you go brake at the 5 and you can do our little math equation where okay, I was too slow at the 2 so I can brake at the 5 minus 2 is 3.
Yeah.
Everywhere else is like uh, okay, I'm going to try a little later. Okay, that was too late, so I have to go a little earlier. Okay, so now that I've done that, I think I'm pretty consistent what's close by. That little place where my headlights flicker on that piece of sealer. Perfect. You
Yeah.
know, it's
I I think I
it
think
is
that
a
is
creativity based thing.
yeah, I think that is the way to do it though. You're like, okay, I'm gonna break. Maybe there's something that you used, and you're like, okay, that was too early. I'm gonna break with like a car length past that, right? Which is like not as accurate as it could be because it's hard to judge that, right? And then you break a car length ish after, and you're like, cool, that was it. And then the next lap you come around, and be like, is there something more meaningful to look at in this area, right? And then you're like trying to
Yep.
put that stuff together, and you're doing it on the fly, hopefully, and that's part of the challenge of putting together, fast laps is finding those things to look at.
I like Andy's strategy in the chat. He said my lap times are vibes based. Like, oh, that felt good. Yep, you're the winner. Now
Yep.
we're ice skating.
Yep, that's the one I'm putting on YouTube.
Yep.
That was
Oh, that clip?
that lap had the best vibes. That's the one that's going on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes. You should put a vibe. That would be so
A
funny
little
to start
vibe
calling your
meter.
best your best your personal best or your hot lap. Best vibes lap.
Yeah, best vibes. You know what? That would I mean, honestly, that would probably be more enjoyable experience for the viewer to watch though.
Kinda.
'Cause a lot of the times the best lap times are some of the most boring laps because it's just executed well.
For sure.
So you'll
Yeah,
go
rarely I was watching go ahead.
well, I was saying you'll go to be like, "Oh, yeah, man, that lap time was so good. I was really flogging the car." And then you look and you're just like, "Kinda just driving." Like, there's nothing
Yep,
special.
right.
Yeah.
So I was watching I didn't have a lot going on this weekend, but I watched it ended up watching a lot of racing because of the IMSA stuff going on at Daytona. Excuse me. So I watched the 4-hour I watched a good amount of the 24-hour just in the background. I was cleaning my apartment because my family visited and stuff. Um, and you could tell the energy and like I don't have any specific stories. I'm just trying to make the point that there were maybe a couple of drivers you could tell the energy they put in the car, or you could tell when they were really pushing in, especially the 24-hour. Or actually, there was, if you guys are not necessarily like racing fans, there is, I would say, like the second half of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge race, the 4-hour race, was so good. There was a Mustang, a Porsche, and a McLaren that were like all the same lap times for the most part with little different strengths. And like two of the guys are like rowdy drivers. It was Billy Johnson and Jan Halen. And then there's a third driver, Michael Cooper, who's pretty conservative, I think, in the McLaren, but the McLaren was definitely fastest. So you could just see the energy in those two cars, like the two cars that had these drivers that were like up on the wheel pushing the car hard, and then you could just tell the McLaren was like didn't have to do much about anything. He was just kind of floating his speed, and I would rather watch the first one every single time, but the second one won the race. It's just the
So
speed still you gotta have it.
so, the I checking in with the podcast last week. I know a Mustang won the Daytona 24. I didn't watch any of it, but I know a Mustang won, right? Was it
In
the Mustang?
GT3. No, it was his teammate. It was Sam's teammate.
Oh, come
Guys,
on.
we have this thing where our guests within proximity of being on our podcast have a big successes. Kenton won some races, whatever I don't know. This is basically from Kenton being on the
It's
podcast,
just
but
Kenton. That's the one data point.
but Sam was on the podcast and then his Mustang was on pole, but they didn't win the race.
Where did they end up?
I don't actually know. I can look real quick. There was some real spicy racing in GTD. I'm sure you saw the finger.
Did you see that Tommy Milner put that on his website for a shirt?
Yeah, I'm really glad that the original artist like is part of that because I felt like that
There was a
person
lot of
put that artwork
copycats.
out.
Yeah.
If you missed it, this BMW factory driver and this Corvette factory driver were racing, and it wasn't even freaking close to the end of the race. They were They were all trying too hard, in my opinion. But uh, the people who were trying way too hard were the BMW people who decided to like have team orders to make their car that was out of the race go back out and slow down the car that was leading the race, the Corvette, so that their other BMW can catch up. Absolute horseshit, terrible decision, never do that. But it worked. They slowed the Corvette down, and then the other car caught up, and now they're still actively slowing the Corvette down. The BMW from like way, way, way down in the race is
It's
holding them up on
it's so
purpose.
scummy.
It's terrible. And the Corvette driver finally gets fed up and like tries to weave out of the way, hits the other BMW. There's contact, his car is messed up. And as the other car gets penalized, it goes in the pit lane. The Corvette driver gives him the finger out the window at 170 miles an hour, which I don't even know what the arm strength is for that, but it's impressive.
I don't know
And
how
this
like
artist put out an artwork of the guy giving the finger through the window of the Corvette. And the original artist is the one that got the merch done, which is really cool.
so I if you look how far that arm is out of the window, did he loosen his belts to get his arm out that far? Because you're kind of like low in that car, right?
You are. It depends on how big those side sills are, I guess. I never tried to stick my hand out the window of the NSX, so I don't I couldn't tell you.
Come on, Tom.
It's way out there though.
We need you for the needed information here, Tom McGorman. We need to get you back in that GT3 NSX so you can flip everyone off.
Okay. Right. All right. Well, I'll call John Akeda and try to get back in there
Yeah, yeah, okay. John, if you're listening to this, which let's be honest, you probably are.
for sure.
Yep. Like, come on, we need Tom back in that GT3 car because we need some memes.
Sam's car finished third. They got podium.
Oh, they got podium. Okay, that's not too bad. Too bad we know Sam didn't paraglide from the tower down to the podium ceremony.
No bungee jumping.
No
There was no
zip
zip
line.
lining. None
Yeah,
of the sort,
yeah.
unfortunately. But hey, if you are looking for success and you are also a really good podcast guest, let us know.
Yeah,
We have
yeah,
good
for sure.
omen. Got good juju on this podcast.
So yeah, I posted the link in the Discord to that T-shirt. I'm sure if you search Tommy Milner T-shirt or whatever, you'll find it as well. I might buy one because it's kind of like a moment in history.
I kind of want one too. I also feel like I need to keep an eye out for moments in history from now on and just make shirts,
Yeah,
and that'll be my business. Like this guy's gonna make so much money on that shirt. I hope
he will. Yeah, I wonder. Okay, what's the thing before this that happened in motorsports that you could have made a shirt out of?
the 17 car pileup in MX5 Cup. Did you see that?
Yeah, dude, I forgot about that. Oh my god. That was the most iRacing thing I've ever seen in real life.
I know, and I don't understand.
I don't there's so much
I
room
understand how it
there.
happens because you run out of space. I don't understand how you just. Did you notice there were a couple cars in the background that had been like they had been crashing by the time the first car even hit the wall? They were like, like there were already crashes happening before the first crash happened, and
Oh,
then the
I
other
didn't notice
crashes just
that.
crashed into the first crash.
I didn't notice
I'm
that.
like, what are you doing?
What I There was a couple cars if you because I went through and watched like a bunch of different cars like, "Oh, how did they get through?" or "Ooh, how did they get damaged?" or whatever. There was some cars where they definitely didn't have to damage the car and they tried to make something out of nothing and they just ran into somebody and I'm just like that's what I'm saying. That is the most iRacing thing I've ever seen where like there's no consequences to the actions or at least that's like the mindset like that people are driving in that moment. And how many cars got written off in that moment? Because I think those Miatas total relatively easy when it comes to like in terms of race car. Because I mean, it's a modern car that's 2,300 pounds. Like the whole thing's a crumple zone, right? So
Right?
I I bet most of those cars that were caught up in that were actually totaled afterwards.
I imagine. Maybe not like totaled, but there was definitely a lot of money spent in that little accident,
Yeah,
big accident.
that that
I
was
wouldn't. I guess I don't know.
that was a
I assume that
wild,
they put it
wild
back
accident.
together at all costs.
You know what was the most impressive thing about that accident though? The emergency crew cleaning up 17 cars in like like 15, 20 minutes or whatever.
Sure.
That was
I didn't. Yeah, that is impressive. I guess at some point you just gotta like hook it onto whatever and drag it.
just hook and rip.
Yeah, like they're already all totaled. We already determined that. Did you happen to see the only other thing on this topic from the weekend? There was a Cadillac that had like a rear suspension failure in the 24-hour at night, and it spun basically up into the wall in the NASCAR Turn 4 area, like the same basic area, same basic crash, to be honest, that killed Dale Earnhardt. and the car like straight up into the wall, wrecked down into the apron. They brought it back to the garage. They put a new front end on it. They like repaired it a little bit, and it finished the race. It
Whoa.
went in the wall at like 100 and some miles an hour, like head on into this
Whoa, that's
NASCAR wall
crazy.
and finished the race.
How
I
long was
know.
it in the garage?
It finished 22 and a half hours of the race, so it couldn't have been down for very long.
That's actually really cool. I so they probably just went out and were like, "Well, we're gonna get data, right? We're gonna get testing."
Yeah, I guess they're
Yeah.
probably all scored. Well, also at the 24-hour, you get so many chances to get laps back. You have to go back out
Oh,
unless the
yeah.
car doesn't work
Because 'Cause they'll wave you
because they give
around,
you a
right?
lap back every single caution, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Were there that many cautions? Give me a little synopsis of the race, Tom, because I didn't really watch it.
Yeah, I kinda had it on the background too. ended up I was like stream dad this weekend because I used a VPN to get around the IMSA YouTube channel, and then I was just kinda watching in the background, so I put it on as a stream in our Discord channel anyway to let people watch. But, I
We would
watched
never do
most of
such a
the
thing.
4-hour. It was super good. That one's definitely worth going back when it's posted on YouTube for free. It's the 4-hour BMW M Endurance Challenge or something. The race that I used to get to do. The second half of that race is incredible. And then the 24-hour, honestly, it wasn't too it was compelling. The first half had a lot of cautions. I felt like the second half, I was asleep for a lot of it, and I was entertaining my family, so I don't know what happened a ton. But it was surprising to see mainly how many mistakes pro drivers made because it was cold. Like, the
Mm,
weather was really cold, and they every single time you went back out on new tires, they were clearly, like,
struggled.
pins and needles, full pucker, like, fingertip driving, and they would be so slow for a bunch of laps. And, it was surprising to see how many drivers just kinda, like, let that get them. And other than that, I don't know, it was a lot of, like, just watching the pit stop cycle through and the typical endurance racing stuff.
I was talking to MX5 Cup car driver after that event. He couldn't make the event, so I sent him a message. I'm like, "Hey, looks like you just saved 70 grand," and he said, "Dude, those tires are so hard to drive on." So apparently, those Michelins that the MX5s are on are like the same Michelins that like the Renault Clio Cup cars are on. So like 300 horsepower front wheel drive cars that like the tires need to, you know, to handle that heat. And you got these little
Mhm.
tiny Miatas on those same tires. And apparently for like the first like handful of laps, it's like the trickiest, hardest car to keep like facing in the right direction.
Yeah. I can attest from the cold tires on a TCR car, like, those slicks are the least forgiving thing you can possibly imagine. Like, it's literally the closest thing to it would be hitting ice or snow in
No
your
way.
car when you don't expect it until it comes back, but I don't know, I feel like you should expect that, especially if you're like a GTP driver. They were like GTP guys spinning on cold tires, you know? It's
Yeah.
just a surprise, but I guess they probably only deal with that twice a year, maybe, cold
Hmm.
weather at that level,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
True.
the Roar and the 24-hour.
So yeah.
It is fun to watch. I don't know, I like being a race fan. I didn't necessarily miss being there actively, but when I thought about, like, man, I've been there a significant number of the last, like, 7, 8 years. It was a little sad, but
Oh,
outside of that, MX-5 was good. Yeah, I don't know. There wasn't a lot that, like, popped out as a standout storytelling from the weekend. I just watched a lot of racing.
cool. On Saturday, uh, me and Christine went hiking in the like the area that surrounds like Summit Point. There's a oh, I'm drawing a big blank on the big national park that's there.
I know it too because
Oh,
my parents were
Shenandoah, the Shenandoah National Park. And
that's it.
it was magnificent. It was so cool. So me and Christine are like, crap, we got to go back. So we went to like it was a waterfall and it's supposed to be cool when it's frozen. I could not believe how much of a waterfall, well, it would have been, but it was frozen and you could see like the water flowing underneath the frozen part. It was so cool, Tom. It was so cool to see. And Christine's such a good planner. She's like, "Oh, it's probably going to be icy cuz it's a popular trail spot. So all the snow's going to be packed down, it's going to be ice. So you should buy some like cleats or whatever, like the metal spikes or whatever."
Mhm,
And if we did not have these
mhm.
metal spikes, we would have not been able to do this trail because the whole thing was ice. But since we had little spikes on our feet, zero issue. It was completely fine and we were just hauling ass and there was like people that were trying to do the trail like slip and slide and they were having to go like off the trail to like walk on not ice. And
Uh-huh.
And at one point, there was, like, another waterfall, but it was off trail, and we're going there, and I'm like, "Oh, cool, look at all these, like, caves, because it's, like, all these rocks that are, like, kinda, like, leaning on each other, and there's just, like, caverns into these caves. And then at some point, I remembered that there's bears in this park, and that going into one of those caves would be the dumbest way to die if I just, like, came across a hibernating bear. And then I got spooked, and we were completely off the trail, and I got spooked that we were gonna run across some bear, and what the hell do I do if I come across a bear and it's hungry because 'cause it's been
Do you
sleeping?
know what you do?
What?
Well, it depends on the bear.
Well, these are I think in, this park, they're like black bears or whatever, but have you ever seen the video where the guy is running or is like he, like, climbs up a cliff to get away from a bear and it's still trying to get to him?
That's why I say it depends on the bear. The black bear, you have to scare it because it's small, but it doesn't like loud noises. But it can climb, so you can't climb a tree. A grizzly bear, you climb a tree because it's not scared of you because you're small and your loud noises don't matter. And if it's poo, you give it honey, and he's totally fine.
I'll keep that in mind if I ever meet Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
Uh, words out on whether he can climb, though. I don't know. No
I
promises.
I still think, like, if you came across a black bear, it like, chances are if
You have to
you,
yell at it.
what's that?
You yell at it. You get as big as you can, and you make loud noises.
Look, that's what you're supposed to do, but that's like it's a percentage chance that it works. It's not like it's like mauling you to death and you're like, "What the hell, man? I yelled and like made myself as big as possible." It's like
Right.
ripping your arm off like that's not gonna like it's a
It's like
percentage
the fight or
chance.
flight, like, "My brakes failed, what do I do?" No one gets to judge you unless you had your brakes fail and you did everything right.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
person can judge you.
Exactly. So if you're getting mauled by a bear and you're complaining to it that, "Hey man, what the hell? I made noise and like stomped my feet and like put my arms out and whatever." That doesn't Tom, that doesn't matter. It's still a bear and it could kill you if it decides to. So like that's why I got spooked. I was like, "Nope, nope," because we were going off trail and it was really fun actually to get to this other waterfall that was like actually waterfalling. And,
Mhm.
then I got spooked, and, once I got spooked, I was like, "I'm this is not how I'm going down." I think getting mauled by a bear has to be one of the worst ways to go down, right? Because you would literally be getting savagely ripped apart while you're still alive.
Think any animal while you're alive, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah, no, so I started thinking about that. Christine was completely fine. She's like, "Ah, it will be fine," and I'm like, "I no, we're not dying to a bear. Even if it's a cute little, bear, we're not dying to it. I don't care. I don't care how cute that bear is."
Wait, so did you, like, vacate the premises right away? You guys had to, like,
We
turn
went
around
back
and
to the
leave?
trail.
Because
We went back to the trail where other humans were.
oh, you just went the trail?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
bears famously can't go on trails.
Yes,
They go other
everyone
places.
knows that if you're on the trail, you're completely safe from bears, but the moment you go to off trails, they get a little territorial. They might rip you apart.
"Hey, they told you where to go. This is my space." That's my bear voice. Um, that's super cool. How far did you guys walk? Hike
We did 2 different hikes,
on
and
your snow tired
I
feet?
think it ended up to be like, I don't know, like 6-ish miles. They weren't really that long of hikes, but the elevation change was a lot higher than what we normally do. Um, And then the second hike, we drove up, some mountain. Christine would know the name of it. And then the last leg of the hike was, like, probably, like 2 miles or whatever, so you, like, drove to a spot, and then you walked 2 miles, and then you were at, like, the tip of this mountain, and the views out were, like, outrageous. And the ele
Is that where that photo was of you on the
Yes.
peak?
Yep, and
That
that
did look so cool.
yeah, and it was like, like 4,100 feet or whatever of elevation, and I know that's not that high, and people live in Denver right now, and they're going, "Well, that's nothing, dude, like, I sleep at that elevation," but I'm in Ohio, like, my elevation is, like, 600 feet or whatever, so at 4,100 feet, you could actually feel the elevation difference, like, between the air, so I think before me and Christine go to Colorado to get married, um, I think we're gonna go back there and do like a bunch of hikes to try to at least get somewhat acclimated to hiking with less air. Because even though that was only 2 miles, and we were working hard because it was through the snow, but it you could tell that the elevation change was affecting us. You had to breathe harder and more deliberate and move slower. And that was only 4,200 feet. We're going to go on much higher hikes when we get to Colorado.
Isn't there something where if you go like acclimation days, Like, you don't necessarily need to go to altitude to hike to get trained on altitude, but you have to go to altitude to just exist. Is that right? Maybe some of our friends, I know, like,
Yeah.
Mike Forsyth's listening, he's from
So
Colorado and
your
stuff.
your body
They're just
will
used to it, it's better.
yeah, your body will have a reaction to different elevations, and it will
Yeah,
adjust
yeah.
your red blood cell count, from what I understand, to be able to better move oxygen from your lungs to the rest of your body.
So if you just went a couple days early and you do your marriage hike? Wedding hike on, like, a later day,
It
you
is
could be
on a
better
later
off.
day, purposely from when
Yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah.
getting there. Yeah, but we're
See,
planning on
you're
doing a
ahead of
bunch
me,
of
you're
hiking.
fine.
We have this we have this 9 mile hike that's supposed to be like super tough, planned at the end of the trip. So it's at elevation, and it's huge elevation gain during the hike. And 9 miles is really that's a really far hike for us where we're at right now. And so that's planned at the end. So hopefully, like whole week of hiking, because that's like the theme of our wedding. The whole week of hiking, by the end of the week, either we're like completely exhausted and we're like, that's a terrible idea. Let's just watch Netflix. Or maybe we're like, okay, we're trained up and we're ready. Hopefully it's the second one. But yeah, we'll just play it by ear.
I mean, worst case, you end where you wanna end, and then you just, like, sit down and slide back down.
Yeah, I mean, the view is supposed to be
Or
pretty
curl up in a
amazing.
ball and roll
I
back
probably
down?
could do that. There were some moments this weekend where, like, if you lost your footing, you were probably like gravity was probably going to take you for a while. I don't know where you would
I
have
can
ended
imagine.
up, but yeah, it's I don't know, it's fun. Tom, you should come hiking with us sometime.
I would like to, I enjoy hiking. Like, I enjoy more curated hiking, though, I guess I've never really done I don't know if would enjoy the intense, like, I gotta hike through water and climb stuff, and
We should go hike a bunch of trails with bears, because then if we see one, I only have to run faster than you.
well, you think I'm slower than you and Christine?
Well,
I mean, I am, but
I
it
know.
wouldn't be that I'm slower, it's I wouldn't last as long. You guys are in better shape than I am.
Yeah, Christine's just like, I just have to run farther than Tom, and I'm just gone. I'm just like, nope, not
Yeah.
dealing with bears. Actually, you guys are just doing the proper thing and making like a bunch of noise, and then the bear's like, yeah, I'm gonna leave you two alone. I'm gonna chase that
Right, right,
scared
right, yeah.
human that's running.
She's gonna I'm gonna get on her shoulders, and I'm gonna make big loud
You put
loud noises.
put a trench coat on, and so it looks like only one giant human.
Right, well, her loud noises are because I'm on her shoulders. She's going,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
and then we're in the ground.
Yep, yep, and then yeah, then the bear's gonna go after the person who's screaming hysterically running away.
I do like this reminded me, in the chat, Ducky said, "This is why endurance athletes sleep in altitude tents. It's to thicken their blood and have more oxygen transport capability." That reminds me from this weekend, they kept asking the drivers in their little pit lane interviews, like, what are they gonna do after their stint? And almost all of them just said, "I'm gonna go back to the camper, get a massage, and go to sleep." And I can't fathom doing an endurance race like that where I'm literally just like, I get in the car, I do my little job, I get out of the car, and then I go back to my camper and
Mm.
stay kept until the next time I have to get out of my camper and do my job.
I mean,
Like, how
does sound
unrelatable
nice.
of an experience is that to club racing, endurance racing?
I wonder. Hmm. I bet I could do that in an iRacing 24-hour race. I just
Well, you do,
I schedule. Yeah, I have my masseuse come over and they massage me, and then I go to sleep.
right.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what happens.
In your, like, cryogenic chamber, and then
Yeah.
just 20 minutes before your stint, it slides open, all the steam comes out,
So
and then you come down for your stint.
this is something I've thought about before. And because of like the oxygen to your brain, like your brain operates better, blah blah blah, blah. So like Pikes Peak, they'll have like a oxygen tank with like you know, they'll put the little nose tubes in. What if you just
Mhm.
did that while driving a car? Would you be faster? Because
That's a good
your
question.
brain gets more oxygen, it's going to operate at a higher level.
I mean, I would think so, scientifically. It
Like
just
would
depends maybe on how much brain capacity you're lacking. Like, do you need more brain capacity? Do you need more air when you're just doing a normal thing?
What if it was like super hot? Like, cause your body's working hard to dissipate that heat. But I'm thinking like
Yep, I can see that.
when your body's being pushed to the extreme, if you had oxygen on tap, that would just like help it out a little bit, you would get more from the driver at that point. At least that's my thinking. Maybe there's something against that. And maybe also having a flow of oxygen in a race car is a terrible idea because fire is a thing. But
Right. Well, I'm thinking I'm imagining that for that level of I mean, at this level, you're gonna be you're talking big time.
yeah,
You're not talking club racing for
no.
like an IV of oxygen or something.
Well,
So there's gonna
I
be
could
like
see somebody rigging that up if it had benefit, but
right, but I imagine at that level, things like heat management and muscle strength would be more important than oxygen capacity to the brain for that level of athlete at most standard races in the car. I would bet. I don't
but
know if anybody's what are we talking about? Astrophysics right now? I don't know.
I
If anybody's a physical therapist or understands how this would work, would having a drip of or an on tap like supply of oxygen actually help
you got like an
brain
oxygen
function?
you got an oxygen button on your
If
steering wheel.
oh no, it's like Spaceballs. New Spaceballs reference, and they breathe the air out of the
No,
can.
I've never seen it.
We're gonna watch that after we go hiking.
Okay. After we go hiking, I'm down, Tom. There's some really good
Do
hikes
you
in
like Star Wars?
Cleveland. You should come up to Cleveland and we should do some hiking.
I'd love to do that. Do you like Star Wars or Star Trek? Are you
Star
familiar enough?
Star Wars, yes. Star Trek, I really didn't
Okay,
watch
then
it.
you'll appreciate the movie. You kinda have to know a little bit about those, like, space trilogies to
Okay, okay.
it's a farce movie. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's like a skit or like a slapstick comedy. I normally kind of
It is.
bounce off of slapstick comedy like humor. I don't
Sure.
I don't find myself enjoying humor, Tom.
Okay, well, I'm a very serious person. I only chuckle
If you've
when it's
listened to the
scientifically funny.
podcast, you know that I'm very serious.
Yeah, in Spaceballs yeah, okay, so Daniel said you don't have to like Star Wars, that's true, but you kinda have to get the little world they're trying to recreate. It's like a yeah, it's like a farce movie. What do they call it? A spoof movie.
Yeah, like the
But
scary
I don't
movie
like Adam
movies.
Sandler and Will Ferrell and that kinda stuff, so it's, like, not like that. It's not stupid, like, fart doo-doo humor. It's, like, clever pun jokes, and they make it fun. I'm trying to describe something funny, and that's the only way you can ruin it.
Yeah, this movie sounds like it sucks, Tom.
You know what doesn't suck? Do you have anything else from the weekend?
No, that's it.
Alright, what doesn't suck is racing, and we had a fun, like, topic conversation pop up in our Discord, which you can join by clicking the link in the description of this podcast. We are over 400 strong, which is crazy to
No,
me. I don't even know who these people
over
are.
500 in the Discord.
500 already?
Yeah. The people have been joining it like crazy. Hold on, let me see how many people we got.
All right, well, he
Uh,
does that. You can join this, but we had a fun topic of conversation come up in one of the texts channels that was about why do we race? Our friend Jay DeVries popped it up originally, and then it just started this really cool conversation. Like we talk about all the deeper levels of this stuff, and we talk about the cars and the way they work, and we talk about our drivers as like the athlete and the way they work together and all this. But why do we even do this? I don't think we've ever talked about that, to be completely honest. So I thought it'd be fun to just like, hey, we had this conversation. You find
uh,
it? How many people?
it's over 500. I'd have to add it up on the fly. I think it's like 500 and like 29, 530, somewhere in that range.
That's crazy.
But it
Well, thanks to everyone who has joined.
just in the beginning of the week we crossed over 500 because I was gonna make a post about it, but then I got distracted and then the moment was gone. So, but it was earlier this
Never
week we
too
were
late.
at 500. So
Nice. So DJ, why do you race?
you know, it's honestly a great question, Tom, because racing is very hard. Um, it's just in every aspect of life. It's not like an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to get to do. It's not, there's nothing easy about it. But I do know that when I am racing, especially wheel to wheel, I never feel more alive. Like it just feels like everything it feels I know this is like a recycled saying, but it feels like everything else is waiting just to be able to race again. So like it's when you're racing and then everything else is waiting to race. Like all other life experiences feels like that, right? So but why do we race? Like what makes racing that like pinnacle life like moments for me? I think it's like a collection of a bunch of different things. What about you, Tom?
I'm different, I think, from that. I don't know, I feel like I have to set the stage. So I grew up knowing about racing from the other side of the fence, watching at Mid Ohio, obsessed with it. And then it was like watch on TV, have the video games, have the Hot Wheels cars, have the race track or the slot car track, have like I've told all these stories. So it was the thing that I was obsessed with before I could even do it, which I think is common enough, but it seems common enough like only within motorsports. I don't know a lot of people who are like rabidly fans of something they haven't experienced yet. That's a somewhat uncommon experience, I think. So anyway, it was just this thing that I was fixated on, and I knew I loved it, and I hadn't even done it yet. And then when I got my car, I used to literally just go drive back roads for hours. Like I would run a tank of gas through my car, driving around back roads for 2, 3, 4 hours, and I would just tell my parents I'm going to go drive. And the only way that so I think if I boil it down, if I'm really honest with myself, I think I love driving the most. Like I think the activity of driving and the freedom that it stands for and the adventure and the like activity with the machine that makes sense to me in a way that's so inherent that I can't even explain half the time or I've had to work for 15 years to explain. Like those are the things that probably grab me more than like the competition and the vehicle itself and the way it works and that. But then when you like, what do you do with that? The most like fabulous version of that life is being a race car driver. Like you get to do the thing with the machine that you love to try to go as fast as possible and all this. So I think I do it because of those kind of lived experiences combined with when I started, I was good at it. And that I think is because of some of the work I put in beforehand, like we've talked about, where I was playing the video games and I was so fundamentally interested in the activity, I didn't even realize I was working at getting good at it. And then when I finally did it for real, I was pretty good at it. And I think that's why it stuck because that my personality trait is if I'm bad at it, I bounce off of it. And if I'm good at it, I tend to like it more. So that like little trifecta or whatever you want to call that of like they worked in unison
Yeah.
together to like make racing my thing.
I think
And to be honest, like my favorite forms of motorsports are still like autocross, which isn't really racing against other people. Like I still, if you boil it down, my favorite thing to do is just drive a car without rules, really, to go as like fast as possible.
yeah. Yeah,
That makes sense.
I think we have different perspectives on it. So I think like we both get something a little different out of racing. I think
Hmm.
if I had to like put it into percentages, I would say competition is like 40% of it for me. And then community would be like 10%. And then uh like the driving would be the other like 30-ish percent. And I've lost track of how much percentage I have left. But then like the analytical of somebody's typing, they're keeping track of the percentages for me. Hopefully, thank Daniel. Don't let me down, Daniel. You were paying attention, right? Um. Anyways, to me, it's like all these different things that intersect together because I came from, um. He said, "Sorry, I just clicked on it on accident." He wasn't even meaning to type anything.
You just grabbed the proverbial light in the dark room and shown it on his face. Daniel, what did I say? And he's just like, I'm sorry, I didn't even mean to be
Daniel,
here.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I'm actually in the wrong Discord. Anyways, uh, sorry for calling people out in the chat. I'm very sorry. We love that you're here. Um, for me, it's like all these things that I would enjoy all on their own. So like the competition, I love competing in things, or even like as a kid or like a young adult, I was like competing in different various esports, right? And the competition like grabbed me so hard. Even when I was a kid, before like esports was even called esports, I was trying to beat my friends in different video games or in football or soccer or whatever it was. I was just a fiend for competition. I didn't even know why. Okay, so thanks. Somebody whose name in the Discord is Pool Noodle. I don't know what the real name is. Said that I have 30% left, but now my brain's somewhere else, so that's gone forever. So, but thank you anyways. um, so uh the the competition is important, the driving, I love that aspect of it. I love, like, the analytical part of the driving and, like, how there's almost like like, we've talked about this before, but like your internal algorithm of how you create a lap time and the continual improvement that comes with, driving because it's just this intrinsically hard thing, simple on the surface, but just impossibly deep with tons of nuance, and you're always learning more. I like the physical aspect of it where you're trying to yeah, Jake says it's an iceberg. Honestly, driving is an iceberg because you see it on the surface, but you have no idea what's underneath it. Um, I love that about driving in its own. And I love there's another part that loves being part of that like special group who has like plunged into the iceberg that's like beneath the surface of this driving thing. It's almost like a it's almost like a club, and I love being part of that club. I love all the people in it, um, or at least most of the people in it, uh, and yeah, it just
If you think
feels.
he means you, he does.
No, I
No,
don't.
I'm
I'm just
kidding.
playing. I love everyone. Um, uh, it's just like it's just Daniel names.
Name him. Name him.
I won't. I will not name
Name
them.
him.
Um, so I just think it's like all these different things, like all the things I experienced in my life before racing. Like I love those things, but I think all those things like helped prepare me for racing and competing in that and the other thing that I love about racing is that I feel like it forces me to be a better person. It forces me to be the best person I can be because in general, terrible people do not make it in racing. You have to be a good person to actually make it in racing because it's because the community of it is so important. I think and unless you're just writing huge checks, but those people generally don't stick around that long anyways. Um, but I think like just all those things combined just make racing the ideal way I spend my time. The fact that I'll never be perfect at it, it will never be mastered for me. Uh, it's uh, it's hard to explain.
Well, that's a
So
good part. It's an Go ahead, sorry, finish your thought. That's a good point, though.
what? That it'll never be mastered?
Yeah, it's an incompletable task.
It's an incompletable
There are
task.
stages to it that never end.
So it's like a endless tap of dopamine. That's probably the best way to sum it up. Is racing is like an endless tap of dopamine that is on tap as long as I get to go do the thing forever.
Mhm.
I don't have to look anywhere else for it. I know it's readily available with this activity.
Yeah. So part of I'm kind of reading back the conversation that we had back on January 17th. So this is 2 weeks ago almost at this point, but part of Jay's question was why didn't we stop at driving? You know, why do we race? What is it that the joy of going fast isn't enough? We would only ever do HPDE, like we had to do more. And a lot of he kind of wrote something that was along the lines of it's effectively part of it's like something in terms of combat or going to war, going to battle, whatever, in the same way that a lot of competition is. But to your exact point, David said, "Why do we race?" I feel like the core question of this is what this podcast grapples with. It's dopamine. The obvious answer we all need, and then he crossed out need and said crave it. So, what is it about motorsports that gets dopamine going? Competition with ourselves, with the clock, with the driver next to us, with the car giving us a car width of space minus an inch. Competition is what fuels us, and that's why we race over HPDE or autocross, etc.
Yeah, I think David's
And
got
I
it.
think that that's totally true. I think you can almost get addicted to the dopamine opportunity of it.
But then racing is because racing is so hard, you get checked, right? It's not just this upward trajectory where you're just like you get like
Yeah,
drunk
yeah,
by
yeah.
it. You don't get drunk off of dopamine because the moment where you're feeling too great about yourself, you get checked, right? Like somebody goes faster than you lose something that you don't feel like you should have lost. The car breaks, something happens where you get checked. Where like so like the fun isn't endless to the point where it gets like boring and almost like like intoxicating, like the way some like illicit drug would or whatever, because
Mhm.
it isn't endless in the sense that it's like predictably go on forever. You will get checked at some point. Like I said, you'll lose, car will break, something. So then it keeps you coming back for more to try to get those feelings that you experienced before over and over and over again. We're just junkies, guys. Let's be honest.
I think that's true. Both everything you just said, actually, but the idea of it, I thought about this as like money is inherently built into racing because of what we're doing. It's so expensive to do. And having just watched the 24 hours of Daytona, and there's all these people who are paying to race in that race, and massive amounts of money in their pockets at all times, and like that's to go do that is not a big deal to them. But that doesn't make it easier for them.
Mhm.
Not really. It raises their opportunity to be good at it, but imagine you're a businessman who has hit the point of, like, diminishing returns with how much more money you could make. Or you're a person who owns, or I guess that's kinda what it would make it a sport, really, is if you're a person who like, gaining wealth is an incompletable task in the same way that getting better at racing is an incompletable task. But at some point, you do hit a point of diminishing returns where money just it doesn't even matter to you. And people like that still latch onto racing because it is this there's a level of being able to be checked by the activity
Yeah.
in the same way that anybody's gonna get tackled eventually when you play football. Anybody's gonna get shot, uh, I don't know why I picked this analogy, but playing paintball, like, you can't just be invincible to that kind of stuff. So the fact that you never feel like you complete it, but you also can't guarantee that you're ever gonna hit that point of diminishing return until you win so much you just don't care anymore, which is so unrelatable to basically anybody that I've never met a person like that really.
Yeah, I don't
It
know
makes
if I've ever
it makes
came
the
across
activity
that.
really interesting.
I don't know if like cuz even then like those people will still get checked. Like look at Lewis Hamilton. What did he win? Like 6 world championships in a row or 5 in a row and he had 6
7
total or
total.
whatever. Whatever.
7 total, I don't know overall.
Lewis Hamilton won a bunch in a row, right? But then his teammate Nico beat him. And then the next year he came back like hungrier and stronger than ever, right? Because Hamilton made it like a way like the way he like a process, the way he uh the way he like viewed himself or just his processes to be in that sport and to be at that level, uh that check made him reevaluate a lot of those processes. I'm willing to bet it's not like I talked to the guy or anything, but he reevaluated a lot of his processes. He gets challenged by other drivers, and if you want to stay on top, you have to continually evolve how you're driving, how you're competing, because the car's changing, the competition's changing, everything's changing all the time. So you have to be on it all the time. It doesn't stay stale. It's constantly evolving. Um, yeah, it's just the best thing ever. Jake in the chat says dopamine is a pit. I genuinely want to know how many people in motorsports are dopamine deficient, usually ADHD slash neurodivergent. I feel motorsports taps into a stronger, more sustainable supply than most other sources. The fear slash danger side is hard to match elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, the fear and danger side is actually a really interesting part of it too. When we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, there was a lot of answers of obviously it's fun. There's Spaz said it's for the glory. Danny goes, "You mean the mugs and beer glasses?" um there was Thomas mentioned the camaraderie that we talked about, the bond formed anytime you have a good battle with someone, that's a good point. But
Yeah.
even the like part of the dopamine for me, like I mentioned, I found out that I was good at this pretty much right away. Like my first autocross, there were a lot of people like, "Oh, you're really good at this." And I don't think that if I had I'm confident now, 20 years later, that if I had not had that dopamine from the social attention and the social positive response that I got in addition to the fun that I had, I don't think it would have hit me quite as hard like it did. I wonder how many people are more I mean, that's a general activity kind of thing. Like you get into your thing and then you're there for the people just as much as you are the activity. But
I think
it's a pretty
I
good point.
I think another point of it is I think it's also cool. I think it's super cool. I think racing is like the coolest thing ever. And I think that makes my own personal view of myself. Like, I think I'm cool. I don't know if that's actually true, but I think I'm cool. Like, and I think that actually matters. So if you're doing
I agree.
something in an activity where you're like yeah, so Ito says I'm not. So but I mean that's fine. I can take a, hey, I just got checked. That's fine. I'll chase that dopamine some other time. But uh
And that's how you know he's a real friend.
thanks, Ito. um so I think if you're doing an activity that allows yourself to at least believe that you're cool until Ito tells you otherwise, that I think that actually adds to the thing. If you think like because there's this
Dude,
whole
100%.
community and the society and everything, like I just think like racing cars in cool cars, whether it doesn't even have to be in a cool car, but like I think just racing cars in general, I would say on the most average scale that like people would just inherently think that that's a cool thing that you're doing.
Totally. Like 100%. I think that's why racing is so popular, period. That's the reason it stayed around is because it's so fantastical and so like unbelievable to a lot of people. But if you're the race car driver in the room, you're the most interesting person to everybody upon meeting you. And I used to actually think like I used to think the same as what you're saying way more firmly than I do now where like I know like what I do is badass. I'm so cool for what I do. Like I would never say that, duh, but I did believe that like no one has ever met a race car driver until they meet me. Basically, like when you go to bars, you go to parties, you go to family functions,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
You're like it's like basically scientifically provable that everyone thinks that's so cool until and then as soon as you start the conversation, it maybe pivots somewhere else because then most of the time they glaze over within 3 exchanges, or you glaze over because they only know about like Ferraris or
Yeah, yeah, they're like
something.
yeah, yeah. I
Like we're not actually cool, but it is scientifically provable. Like, oh, that guy's a race car driver, and everyone's like, oh, really?
wow, that's
What is that like? Oh,
interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Doug in the chat. How fast have you gone? That's the number one question. And you're like, I don't know. I think I hit like
wait,
a
wait, let's
hundred and
answer it.
I hit 120 something in my Civic in a giraffe.
Let's answer it. How fast have you gone
Ever?
ever
163?
in the Porsche?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's up there. I did 172 in a Porsche as well, but only on one day and one thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been in the 160s very often.
No, neither have I. It feels quick.
It
It
does, but that
it
doesn't
feels
also
so
that's not
much
impressive to
different.
anybody,
It feels so much different than 130.
right? People hear 160, 170, they're like, "Oh, you don't go like 400 miles an hour?"
Yeah, 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 exactly. But then you'll have like people that are like little highway warriors, and they'll be like, "Well, I did 120 like on an accident in my Camaro or something," and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's not the same or whatever. And you know how I always answer that "How fast have you gone?" question? Um, I always just say well, as fast as the track will let me go. Like it's
Yep.
just it's and then maybe I'll explain like a competition or whatever and and like the fun part is the corners. I'll say that and then they'll like maybe answer why or whatever. And I'll be like, imagine doing an on ramp and the car is sliding through the whole thing. Wouldn't that be fun? Like, but you did it in a controllable, like predictable way where you could do it again and again and again. That's what it's like on a racetrack. The straightaways, meh. You're just waiting to get to the corner, right?
Sure.
That's
I mean,
how
we believe that.
that's how I always approach that. Like, how fast have you gone? Question. I like go like, yeah, yeah, yeah. The speed, whatever. That's the boring part. Like the corners are the fun part.
I'm realizing how small my circles have gotten. I haven't had this conversation with a new person in so long.
So Christine has
Like, I
normal.
haven't met a stranger I'm at an event all the time when I meet new people.
Christine has normal friends, and so I will
Sure.
I will interact with normal people. And honestly, Tom, we've had this whole conversation. They don't give a shit. They don't care.
They don't.
They
No,
don't.
no, no. Well, that's what okay, so I started to say, I used to firmly acknowledge, like, I know what I do is cool. My life is cool, like, I'm an interesting person. There was a period where, like, that was a pretty accepted, like I don't believe that to my core, but that was what I knew people saw and whatever. And then I realized, like, after years and years and I'm racing in IMSA and I'm making it in my own way that I loved, people didn't know what the hell I did, and I didn't know what they did. And I was like, I went from being the most interesting person in the room upon introduction to the least interesting person in the room, like 3 sentences in, because I can really only hold conversation about 7 things. And then like 3 of them are what I had for dinner and lunch and breakfast, and then like the other 3 are cars.
But then the other thing
I had one
is
more.
we're so specialized into motorsports that it's actually hard to have because like I don't somebody will be talking about sports and I'm like, "Ah, I don't know. Like I used to play football in high school, so like I can kind of hold like a conversation about football or whatever, but like I wouldn't be able to tell you about that player's name and the yardage and the thing and the whatever. I can like I know the game, but I don't know like the happenings of like the playoffs or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what teams are good or which ones are bad or I wouldn't get any kind of inside jokes or anything that involves anything other than that except racing. So yeah, I think your analogy of like you're very interesting for like 3 sentences and then you're very not interesting is completely true because I even my own family, when I go to family functions, they'll ask me about racing stuff, probably just being polite. But I like I don't know how honestly I don't think I'm very good at explaining it in a way where it's so surface level, like, they don't understand, like, the hard work and the things that are happening without me, like, talking their ear off for, like, an entire podcast. Like, there's just no way for them I just be like, "Oh, it's going great. I got to drive this cool car, this cool car, this cool car, and, um, and it's just been a lot of fun. What about you?" And then I get to hear about, like, their job and stuff, and I'm just like, "Yeah, cool. Whatever.
Right.
Family function."
Right.
Right? But, like, it's like it's impossible for them to understand our inherent passion and love for this thing where it's almost like even talking about it on a surface level thing is like very hard to do. Like just scratching the surface of racing stuff to just kind of give somebody like the cloud level view of it is actually kind of difficult.
What would it be like? Okay, so we had to watch this football game last night. My family was up here, but there was a football game that was important enough that we had to like be near a TV with it on the entire time
Okay.
my family was here.
Was it was it like
Whatever.
was it like a college game or a pro game?
It was football with the oval kind of one, orange,
Come on, you had to
brown,
pick up
brown,
some
not even
kind of
orange.
information on it, Tom.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it was. I don't know what it was. I literally couldn't tell you. But I
Okay.
know it was important because we had to have it on. We couldn't go anywhere else for dinner. Like we had to stay there and watch the game. What would it be like if we could walk into a room with people who are that involved with their interest? Like, can you imagine being able to walk into any room and talk at the level that we're interested about our interest, the way that sports fans can do that?
Yeah, we just have to go to a racetrack or a paddock or like an autocross
Yeah.
event. Like we
Right,
get to
right.
do that all the time. But like when you're out in like normal people land, but here's the thing is like I'm sure all these quote unquote normal people, they have like their interests that they're like super passionate about and they can't talk about that at a family function either because they would just have like their whole family glaze over and they have their like core group of people that they do this thing that they're crazy about. It could be like flying drones, it could be bowling, it could be like whatever, right? Like like there's so many things that people it could be hiking, right? There's people that are just absolutely crazy about hiking. Christine was telling me about this hike where people hike down to the Grand Canyon, they do a hike in the Grand Canyon, and then on the third day they hike out of the Grand Canyon. And it's a 3-day hike and it's like
Rim to rim.
yeah, and yeah, okay, so you just know about it. All right. I guess I'm the only person that doesn't know about this. I'm using this as an example of something like super specific, and Tom blows it all up by knowing about it.
Sorry, no, no. I only know that because the Hollises like hiking the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
Anyway,
gotcha. Okay. But but yeah, I think I don't know. I guess that's just probably the interaction anywhere. But to bring it back to why we race, Tom, it's cool.
cool. It's fun. It's cheap.
Is
It's
it?
easy.
Is it cheap? I feel
It's
like
accessible. It's fair.
I
I don't know.
I feel like Tom's
I'm
just
running out
making
of the.
yeah, it's just
I am, yeah.
you named all the
But
things that are like the negative side effect of racing is that you will it inherently cost as much money as you make.
yeah, somehow,
And
kind of
then
like you'll always fill in
and then
such space
some.
as your house has.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
if we missed anything from this conversation and you're like screaming at your microphone, like this is why I race, let us know because I'm intrigued by this. I liked the simplicity of this topic because we go deep a lot, talking about like twisting the car into the corners and da 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 da. Da. And why do we even do this? It's fun to talk about.
Yeah. I just think
Propaganda. Oh no, we could be just or
what
Andy's accusing us of being propaganda.
who
I
we
guess we're
propaganding
motorsports
for?
propagandists.
I will say
Well,
I will say in the office, I am the motorsports drug dealer. I'm always trying to get people to go to autocross events. I'm trying to get them to play Mario Kart. I know that's not like motorsports, but like it's something. I'm trying to get people to do the thing so they like can experience the thing cuz I think people think they know what it is, but they don't actually know what it is until like you're out there
sure.
and you're doing it.
Yep. The last part that we can't talk to because this is our podcast and not yours is about working on cars. So if you like that part, neither of us do, but if that's what gets you into motorsports, good for you.
And Tom, this is the perfect time where I announce Carlton McCarguy's spin-off podcast, Come Work on the Car with Carlton. Thanks everyone. You'll see it on Spotify someday. I swear I'll get around to recording it. I'm just too busy looking at engine bays. It's crazy. They're all different.
All right, thanks Carlton.
Nice, snappy title there. Good job, bud.
Yeah, you might want to workshop that one a little bit, Carlton. Just saying.
What was it? Working on cars.
With
Come work on
Carlton.
cars with Carl. Come
Yeah,
work on cars.
come work on cars with Carlton.
An audio podcast, and it's just ratchets clanking.
And with the
That's
occasion
closer to one of those
with the occasional
12-hour
F
ambient
bomb.
videos.
Yeah, it's
What?
ratchets clanking and with the occasional F bomb like thrown in.
And a little bit of like maybe some compressed air every once in a while.
Yeah, with the compressor running.
Honestly, I'm gonna tell Andy he needs to put a microphone in the shop and just no,
Mm.
that's a bad choice.
No, that would work if there was no talking.
Someone Yeah, well, they talk. So but someone that can't talk at work, a shop ASMR, you could make so much money on YouTube with that if you got your monetization going.
Yeah, you would. Like 10 hours uh of shop noises. That has to already be a thing. Hold on.
I'm sure it is. Carlton
Can
sleeps
somebody
through it every
Google it?
night.
I'm not gonna Google it because it might mess up the recording. But can somebody like
I
look
can
that up? You're gonna look it up, Tom? That has to be a thing.
what
Like
do you call it?
just like
Car
do like
shop
car shop
ASMR?
noises.
Oh, yeah, it popped right up.
All right,
Auto
so
repair ASMR.
it's a thing.
What are we doing?
What we like, guys, everyone listening to this podcast right now, we come up with nothing original on this show. Like this is all recycled. And if the moment we think that we thought of something, it's not actually true.
No.
No.
But I am gonna start just stealing every little thing that happens and making shirts about it because I did like that shirt that man made
Yeah. I like that shirt
with the
too.
Corvette and the bird. Ooh, that was still on camera.
What? I don't think
Whatever.
that matters. You're not gonna get demonetized because
Our huge YouTube channel might get taken down, DJ.
by the way, this is on YouTube, by the way. I don't hmm. We still gotta figure out the to like level up the video stuff. But we'll get there. We'll get there, everyone. It's a work in progress. Tom, what are you doing this
What are
weekend?
we doing on I am dog sitting
Oh.
for Senna Coutil.
Oh, that'll be fun. Where's Eric going?
Yeah, they're going to a wedding somewhere, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
dog sitting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like, basic food, peeing, potty, walks,
Yeah,
whatever.
that'll be fun.
Uh, and then I'm just gonna say it on the podcast because we've been doing it. We have made a habit of playing Assetto Corsa on Thursday nights for fun. I've gotten up to 3 or 4 people to play with me so far, but they're different every time except for Raul. And if anybody's interested in playing some non-iRacing, fun mods, fun little things, that happens on Thursday nights now. That's kind
Hopefully.
of my plan for the weekend.
So I have band on
But
Thursday nights. That's why I haven't been there. But
I know.
if you can get Mario Kart tracks working in Assetto Corsa, I'll be home at like 9:10. I would be down to drive some Mario Kart tracks in Assetto Corsa.
I already tested them out. Say no more. That's our thing this week, apparently.
Okay. All right. So come hang out with us 9-ish p.m. Eastern for some
Yeah, just in the evenings on Thursdays. If you want to join the Discord to find the information, you can. If not, Thanks for listening. What are you doing this weekend?
Saturday, me and Christina are going a long hike. I think there's a 12-mile hike. We're gonna try it. I might be ruined, but we're gonna.
I did a 12-mile hike with Renee in Wisconsin, and it was amazing, but it does, like, you will feel it at the end.
Yeah, so we're probably gonna be dead after that. But then on Sunday, there's a and I signed up for this like BMW like Prodigy iRacing thing, and it I guess like if you do well, like you get to go drive like a radical or something. I don't know all the details on it, but I'm gonna participate in that at some point during the weekend. I don't know when that race is, but I'll figure out the details. That's not really important. But on Sunday, the Steel Cities autocross region is doing like their award banquet, and they're doing it at Three Rivers Karting, which is a pretty cool karting place, like just outside of Pittsburgh. So I'm gonna go
Mhm.
karting on Sunday with a bunch of autocrossers. That should be fun.
Is that in the day or the evening?
Evening.
Probably day. Oh,
Why, you want to come with?
I'm done dog sitting in the middle of the day, so I might try to come,
Yeah,
but we'll see.
I think I have to leave at like 3 o'clock to get there in time because it's like I think it starts at 5.
That's not crazy. Okay, I'll let you know. I might try to come to that. That'd be fun.
Okay, cool. That would be fun to have Tom.
Yeah. I also just realized this is a terrible time to do it because it's at the bottom, but we have an iRace coming up on February 8th, Saturday. It's a 3-hour endurance race, streamed by Kyle Heyer on Sim TV and with prizes from Hawk Performance and Lizard Brains podcast. If you're interested in iRacing as well, we have that coming up. But you still have to join the Discord either way to find out more. So that's it. Done with my plugs.
Yeah,
Plugs out.
we need to really start pushing the race. I think we got plenty of people in the Discord, so I think like the population of the race will be good, but we should probably make like a post or something that says like, "Hey, we're doing a thing. Come join us." Also we need to get like the stream donation link up or at least refresh it. I think the same link would probably work. So we don't end up paying for the entire stream ourselves because it's expensive.
We be poor. We have to make more merch. I'm gonna steal that Corvette design and make our own merch.
Do it with what with like a lizard hand coming out of the window? Like how would you change it?
I'm gonna change it to be your Civic with a lizard hand coming out the window.
Yep, that works.
Love it.
Can we change the Civic into a Porsche?
Yeah, the Porsche. That's what I meant. Did I say Civic?
Yeah.
I meant Porsche.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
All right. Do you have any closing thoughts, Tom?
I don't think so. Are you gonna ambush me with the music right now?
No, I'm just gonna. I'll cue up the music
Oh, okay.
when you point at me.
All right.
Oh, you're pointing at me. Hold on.
Yeah. I got nothing left. to
Wrong
say.
button. Correct button.
Quack, 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 quack. I love your hair and I hope you win.